Welcome to The Source. When politicians take away your freedom,
strong language, hatred, strong, unbelievable Christian belief, a criminal point of view.
Canadians don't go down without a fight.
Nanaimo's shame will be redeemed.
And boy, oh boy, did we get Nanaimo City Council where it hurts. In their hometown, we targeted the mayor.
Is the mayor handy?
And the bigot who started it all.
Councillor Patrick, can I talk to you for a few minutes?
I was treated like a hero.
Thank you. Well, I want to thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much, Ezra. I'm so glad you're here.
But tonight, I tell Sun News viewers everywhere why they're the heroes and the freedom fighters Canada needs. It's a source to remember, and it starts right now.
I'm here in beautiful Nanaimo, British Columbia. It is so gorgeous. The weather is perfect. The scenery is perfect. It's beautiful British Columbia, but one step beautifuler because it's on Vancouver Island. But an ugly thing has been happening in this beautiful city. On May 5th, a city council voted 8-1 on an ambush motion that no one was given notice of, not even fellow city councillors. They voted to cancel, without notice, without a hearing, without the rule of law, to cancel a Christian-themed conference that was going to be held in the city-owned convention center just days later. And in addition, that same bigoted anti-Christian resolution contained a permanent injunction, a sort of restraining order banning anyone with, quote, divisive views from ever renting space in public property in Nanaimo again. Well, we've been fighting this fight because we believe in freedom at the Sun News Network, and although I'm personally Jewish, I feel that I have a moral obligation as a Canadian to stand up for religious freedom for any group. In fact, I think I have a special obligation because if this were no Jews allowed, I would want Christians to help too. That's why we fought back. Well, we've done several TV shows on this. We've raised money to hire a civil liberties lawyer to fight back against the anti-Christian bigotry. And then on very short notice, less than a day and a half notice, we emailed some friends in Nanaimo and said we were going to have a bit of a gaggle, a bit of a get-together in front of City Hall. I was going to bring the Timbits. Well, it was an amazing day, and that's what today's show is about. Nanaimo fights back to regain its reputation and to put things right and to shut down that bigoted motion that remains on the books to this day. Stay tuned on The Source. Well, that's the story, but let me show you a few key facts that happened before I flew out there yesterday morning. It all started with a conference in Atlanta, Georgia that featured A-list speakers like former First Lady Laura Bush, Desmond Tutu, and Malcolm Gladwell. It was very gently Christian-themed and very professional. It was called LeaderCast because it was simulcast in 800 theaters around the world, including in Nanaimo. Well, that was the plan, at least, and plenty of people bought tickets for the Nanaimo show at their own convention center. But then just 4 days before the simulcast convention, a city councilor named Fred Patchy brought a surprise motion to cancel the convention center contract with LeaderCast and permanently ban them and anyone else whose views city council deems divisive.
My motion reads that the City of Nanaimo advise the VICC, the Vancouver Island Conference Centre, that as owners of the facility, any events that are associated with organizations of people that promote or have a history of divisiveness, homophobia, or other expressions of hate, and as such advise the VICC to not permit the upcoming LeaderCast event to occur in the city-owned facility that is scheduled for Saturday, May the 9th. And I so move.
Well, it was an ambush. No one from the LeaderCast group was even invited to defend themselves. No one from the convention center was there either. It was a sneak attack, and it got very nasty very quickly. Here's a taste of the 20 minutes of hate directed at Christians.
We don't want to be associated with organizations that promote homophobia or other expressions of hate.
We will not accept acts of hate, and it's even within our Charter of Rights and Freedoms as well that hate speech is not permitted.
What I would call a very strong, unbelievable Christian belief. I find this almost to be a criminal point of view in this day and age.
Huh, criminal, eh? There was only one councillor who dared to speak against this religious discrimination. Only Bill McKay raised any objections.
So again, my objection to this is the fact that we're going to be voting on something where the sponsor of the event, our local newspaper, is not even permitted or even has knowledge of this vote that's taking place right now, nor are they permitted to stand at the podium and defend this event. So I can't support it.
He had other objections too, but to no avail. The blatant act of anti-Christian discrimination was rammed through City Council in just 20 minutes.
All those in favour? Opposed? We have Councillor McKay opposed, balance council in favour. The motion passes.
That's incredible. I mean, can you imagine a 20-minute debate about Jews or gays or blacks or Muslims, comparing them to criminals and cancelling their convention? It's unthinkable. But Christians? Sure, an 8-to-1 vote. What's even more incredible is that no one cared. There was a speck of coverage in the local newspaper, but that's about it. I mean, imagine if they canceled a Jewish or Muslim or gay event, not just canceled, but then banned them forever, calling them divisive. Of course, anything is divisive if people divide along different opinions. That was just code for letting the politicians pick and choose who could use city property. It wasn't just ripping up a contract. It was setting up 2 tiers of citizenship in Nanaimo, and yet there was national silence on the subject. The next month, a local brigade of pastors went to City Hall to complain about being compared to criminals, and city councillors just sat there. They didn't care. Some other citizens asked basic accountability questions like, on what legal right do you rip up a contract and at what cost? Again, City Hall didn't care. And there really wasn't any public pushback, not from the media, not from the greater public. They were getting away with it, getting away with breaking the law. Not just contract law, but the Charter of Rights, which guarantees freedom of conscience and religion. I heard about this scandal only a few weeks ago when a local Nanaimoite sent me an email about it. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe this blatant illegal discrimination, and equally, I couldn't believe that the media and the public at large could accept this. Where were the watchdogs? Where were the civil liberties associations who would fight for freedom? Well, that's what we do here at The Sun. We fight for freedom, whether it's in Toronto or Inuvik or Nanaimo, BC. Immediately, we put up information about this travesty on a website called therealbigots.com. We launched a petition calling on City Council to repeal the illegal motion and apologize. I'm so proud to say that as of today, the petition has been signed by 6,257 people, and more than 25,000 people have visited the website. It's amazing. We didn't fix the problem yet, but we were on our way. We had broken the cone of silence. Next thing, we talked to John Carpe, a principled civil liberties lawyer with a charity called the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. We asked him if he would investigate if we could sue the City Council on behalf of its victims, people who lost money when their event was illegally canceled, their contract illegally ripped up, and their rights illegally violated just for being Christian in Nanaimo. He agreed to get to work on it, and our viewers chipped in $5,477 to help pay his fees. We started ratcheting up the pressure on City Hall. We started shaking things up a bit, first by telling the story to the world, but then in other ways like hiring a lawyer and even producing radio ads.
Nanaimo City Council banned a group from the convention center because, as Councillor Jim Kipp put it, they were strongly Christian. Seriously, he said that. Councillor Fred Patchy called them hateful.
Those ads were literally going to start airing this week, but still, City Council wouldn't budge. They had too much pride. In fact, last week they released this statement, digging in their heels and saying the only thing they regretted was that all these Christians were so thin-skinned. No apology, no promise to repeal the ban. Well, this would not stand. It couldn't stand. And the more Nanaimoites learned, the more they felt City Council made a bad decision that had to be fixed. So we commissioned a public opinion poll. Thousands of homes in Nanaimo were called to get a representative sample size. That alone scared City Council. They couldn't brush this under the rug. It was now water cooler conversations all over the city. I'll show you those poll results later today. Do you see what was happening here? City Council thought they got away with it, and they almost did. But then thousands of Canadians who only heard about the story from The Sun started waking up and started fighting back. And City Hall started to feel the ground tilt, first a little bit, then a lot. On Monday, I sent out an email to folks who had signed the petition in BC, letting them know I'd be visiting Nanaimo, and if they wanted to meet up and talk, I'd bring the Timbits. I expected maybe 10 people to show up. But when I arrived yesterday, more than 100 Nanaimoites were standing there, standing outside City Hall, ready to fight for freedom. It was amazing. I don't think 100 people have ever rallied outside Nanaimo City Hall before for anything, let alone on a weekday with one day's notice. The City Hall staff were peeking at us through the windows. Another TV station sent a camera to cover what had turned into a rally. Newspapers did too. Freedom was on the march. Stay watching. For the rest of the hour, we'll show you what happened yesterday in an amazing, inspiring, democratic Canadian day. A day when freedom and equality came back to Nanaimo because of you. Oh, hi, Rex. How are you? I said hi. Are you already? We're just getting started. After the break, the incredible response we got from the people of Nanaimo who wanted to fight for freedom and repeal their council's bigoted motion. Is the mayor handy? And still ahead, we confront Nanaimo's mayor. You won't believe his response when he was asked about the anti-Christian motion. But first, over to our news desk for some hard news headlines. So there I was with 100 friends standing outside the Nanaimo City Hall. I couldn't believe it. I had just 5 or 6 folks email me to tell me they were coming. I thought there'd be maximum 10 people, and there would be a pretty intimate talk about things. Really just a chance for me to sync up with local Nanaimoites to take the pulse of the town a bit. I bought 100 Timbits just in case there were a few more people, but I ate 4 on the way over, and I was secretly hoping I could have the rest for lunch. But that crowd outside Nanaimo City Hall, it was our Freedom Brigade. Oh, I was so excited. I gave an impromptu speech about our charter rights and our fundamental freedoms, like freedom of speech and freedom of conscience and freedom of assembly and freedom of religion and equality before the law, all things that the City Council had violated. These folks were well versed in their civil rights. One lady even came to the rally wearing a giant poster with our fundamental freedoms written right on them. I started out just by asking folks, why are you here? Why were you here at the little meeting today?
Because I was very concerned about the decision rendered by the council. I don't feel it was a freedom of expression type of decision. I don't believe, actually, that only one person on that council stood against it, and that was Bill McKay. Yeah. I don't believe that they can make a decision like that, and I'm very upset about it, as I know many, many people are.
Why did you come on down here today?
Just standing up for religious freedoms, our Constitution. Yeah, and just not only for Christian faith, but all faiths. I think it's important that we stand up for what's right.
What brought you down here today?
I just believe it's an important issue. You always got to pick your battles, and I think this is a major battle. As Mark Stein said, this is a hill to die on.
What is the central issue in your mind?
Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and I would be here if it was any other group as well.
Why are you here today?
I'm here because I don't believe that City Council should be our moral compass, and I believe that they shouldn't be making any motions on things that they're not informed about, and I'm a huge believer in freedom of speech and freedom of expression.
Incredible. And remember, this was at noon hour on a weekday. 100 people in a city of just 80,000 at a rally with 1 day's notice. Compare that to the same dozen or so professional protesters you typically see in Toronto at some same old protests against the oil sands or whatever. These were real people who had real concerns about civil rights. But civil rights aren't just an abstract idea. Imagine how that ban on divisive Christians might affect your real life. I mean, what if you wanted to have a Christian wedding at a public facility? What if you wanted to have a conference there? These are real questions, given the motion.
We, in fact, were planning to have a wedding there. We're Christian. How does anybody know that? I mean, why would we want to have a wedding there? We've had 2 there at the conference center, but I feel differently about it now with the kind of that kind of a reaction from City Council that somehow we're subclass people, that we don't have a right because we don't agree with what they think.
My son used to be a busker, okay? Now, he's got a huge conference coming up at that conference center at the end of this month. We have people coming from all over the world. Flights, bookings, hotel reservations. What if they put the word busker in there?
I mean, why not? Rip up a contract for one group, rip up a contract for another. I asked these folks, given that Nanaimo politicians are up for election again in November, if they thought this would be an election issue. Do you think this should be an election issue?
Well, I do. I really do. And I think most people in Nanaimo who find out about this will certainly decide against this particular council, except for Bill McKay.
Do you think this is going to be a political issue in November for Nanaimoites?
Well, absolutely. For me it is, and I'm willing to put lawn signs out for Bill McKay. We need a clean sweep here. We need the old boys to be gone. We need a new ethical council to run our city, and we need definitely a new mayor.
Do you think maybe the Nanaimoites, this pricks them too much?
You know, I think you played a great part in that, in bringing this to the forefront. I think a lot of people were aware of it, but perhaps not aware of how big of an issue it really was. And I definitely think it will be an election issue come November, for sure.
And I want to know how much this affair is going to cost us taxpayers. What are they doing to our city?
Now, you might think, well, of course these folks think it's an election issue. They're revved up enough to attend a rally. But how about the average Nanaimoite? Have they even heard of this issue? Well, we hired the national polling firm called Campaign Research to conduct a scientific poll. They got a large sample size with a margin of error of just 4.2%, 19 times out of 20. Here's what the poll found. Fully 64% of Nanaimoites were familiar with the resolution passed by City Council. That's amazing. It was surely just a few percent before we made the story go viral. City Council deliberately didn't give anyone notice of the motion. Now everyone knows about it. But here's what's so important. Nanaimoites believe in freedom and equality and civil liberties. 39% of them strongly oppose the ban on Christians. Another 26% somewhat oppose the ban. That's 65% altogether. That's incredible. Only 27% support the ban, and just 11% of those do so strongly. That's the small, bigoted rump that carried the day in City Council, but that clearly doesn't represent open-minded, fair-minded, equal rights-minded Nanaimoites. What an encouraging sign. Nanaimo's people are tolerant, even if its politicians aren't. Nanaimo also wants to repeal this law by a margin of 51 to 21%. That's great news also. And here's what I think scared the living daylights out of the smug politicians who thought they were pulling a fast one. 74% of Nanaimoites, when you add it up, say this is an election issue, with a quarter saying it's extremely important. I'm so proud of this city, aren't you? By the way, the number of people who think this is an important issue is so large, it swamps the total of votes received by anyone on City Council, any councillor, and even the mayor. It's a steamroller. If the mayor thought he was just dealing with a fringe, no, he's the fringe. Well, clearly the momentum was turning. This was a Sun News fight. At least that's how it started, and that's how we raised money for the lawyer and the opinion poll and the radio ads. But look, freedom doesn't belong to just one of us or one company. It belongs to all Canadians. And so I was thrilled that a competitor TV station called Check News out of Victoria came to cover the event, and they gave it really fair coverage in my mind. Look.
Protesters descend on Nanaimo City Hall, expressing their anger at council for cancelling a Christian leadership event.
I don't think that we can rely on City Council to do the right thing.
Sun TV columnist Ezra Levant is leading the charge against council, turning a political hot potato in the harbour city into a national controversy.
Boy, this was all happening so fast because Canadians cared so much. Clearly, the city had made a terrible mistake, but not just politically, morally. A tidal wave was building, and the mayor knew it.
The sponsor of the event, our local newspaper, is not even permitted or even has knowledge of this vote that's taking place right now. So I can't support it.
Still ahead, we meet up with the one righteous city councillor who spoke out against this ambush motion.
Is the mayor handy?
But first we go to the mayor's office. Does he dare answer my tough questions?
Momentum was building in Nanaimo, and the mayor could sense it. Sure, he had issued an ironic apology and "I'm sorry you were offended" type apology in a letter stating, and I quote, "Nanaimo City Council regrets that its actions in passing the resolution have been perceived as being directed at or discriminatory against Christians or any other religious groups." But frankly, that wasn't good enough. So I went to the mayor's office to see if he would talk to me. He had refused to before, and this time he actually let me in. I started by asking him if he regretted putting the motion through. Here's what he said.
I think that what my position was on it, and I think council's as well, is that I think we're going to refrain from making very sudden decisions on anything as challenging as this type of thing. I think it is unfortunate, and I just want to say that we will be holding a meeting in the very near future. There's several issues that we want to address. One of them is I feel the need to apologize on behalf of council for what's happened. And I will be doing that. We're also well along in the process we started about 2.5 weeks ago of actually rescinding the motion And with respect to yourself, all these things have been in place for some time. We will be rescinding that motion. I've had a number of discussions with the local clergy here in Nanaimo, particularly the Christian community, and they have asked, and I am going to be meeting with all of them of all faiths in Nanaimo, all faiths represented, and explain what happened and why it happened, and what steps we're going to take to eliminate this in the future. It's a very regrettable thing, and I think it's developed into more than any of us wanted. We are a very respectful community. We're respectful of all faiths, all religions, of all ethnic backgrounds, and that we're in the position we're in is extremely unfortunate. And as I say, I do apologize for that, and I will be making that apology at the public meeting of council.
Well, I have to say this is incredible, because your written statement did not have apologies, just the one regret that people perceived it a certain way. You say this has been in the works for a while, but this sounds very new. Some of the people who spoke on council, like Jim Kipp, said very florid things. He compared at least some of these groups to organized crime and to a terrorist group. Will Councillor Kipp, do you know if he's on side with your plan to apologize?
I can't say that, and I think you understand when an individual councillor, be it Councillor Kipp or Councillor McKay, in public or in private, expresses their own views. Those views are their own entirely, do not reflect the mayor necessarily, and certainly the council.
I understand that the city has entered into agreements or is negotiating payments to certain persons or parties for the cancellation that resulted from the motion. Is that true, or is that a false rumor?
Well, I can tell you that I cannot speak to that matter. There is a...
Why not? Is it because you're not allowed to, or you don't want to, or you... Or
no, I'm quite prepared to speak to it. But the issue is, and you as a lawyer understand, we have a confidentiality agreement in place. Both sides have signed it. And
so it sounds like there was some compensation paid then. You just can't tell me what it was.
That's correct.
That's sort of incredible. I mean, I saw one of the subsequent city councils, the open city council, where a fellow was asked, well, how much will this cost? And your answer was, we don't have all the information yet.
And that was true at the time. We didn't have all the information. We've got more information now. And while there was a discussion on that regard, as I say, the confidential makes it difficult for me to try to expand on it. But I think what took place was reasonable. And I think it's fair, and I think under the circumstances, council supported it.
In your view, have you received legal advice? Does City Council even have the legal power to cancel an event at the conference center?
Well, you know, that's something that the lawyers are working on, and I really don't want to comment on that until we get a final decision on it. All I can do is assure the people, certainly yourself, that people of all faiths are welcome, and we encourage people to go to the conference center. We encourage them to use it. It's a wonderful facility, and you know, the possibility of a similar occurrence taking place again in the future, in my opinion, is extremely remote. This was a very regrettable thing. It did take place. We are trying to see how we can move ahead in the future and make sure that it doesn't happen again. We're trying to put all these pieces together. And you know, there's a concern, you know, should we apologize when in some circumstances some members of council feel that we didn't really do anything wrong? Be that as it may, if those people, any people in the community or right across Canada, have been offended, I apologize, because that was never the intent. And I think it's important to point out that at no time was religion ever an issue. I think it's important that people...
Well, it was for Jim Kipp. I mean, he talked about Christians. He said strong Christians. I mean, he used that word. So it was about religion, wasn't it?
It may be for Councillor Kipp. Those are his comments. I can't speak to them.
Well, and the criticisms of Dan Cathy and Chick-fil-A, it was because of the Christian views of that company and its owner, right?
Well, you know, all I'm saying is that wherever possible, we want to try to eliminate all the things that have happened. I don't think we're going to ever have to revisit this thing again, but I'm just trying to say that the LGBT group were the ones that I think were trying to be protected by some members of council, and there was some concern on their part. It never really was intended to I suppose, upset or concern anyone of any faith. Religion did not play a part in the original motion as I understood it, and I think now we're trying to see what we can do to move ahead and get a change made.
Mayor Rattan, you've been generous to meet me with no notice, although I guess you did know the issues I was going to ask you. I appreciate your time. You've given us some real news today, and I look forward to watching the things you've just told us about come to unfold. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. It'll be by the end of next week for sure.
Thanks.
Well, in fact, that apology is scheduled for tonight's City Council meeting. And I'll bet you'll be tuning in, and we'll let you know how it goes tomorrow. So the mayor says he plans to apologize, but was that just a panicked reaction?
Well, it's about time we started heading in the right direction.
We speak with the freedom-fighting councillor who's been against this motion from the start, after the break. And later, remember the councillor who put forward this bigoted motion?
My motion reads...
Well, we showed up at his house.
Councillor Pastor, can I talk to you for a few minutes?
You won't want to miss this. Not all politicians in Nanaimo are against freedom or equality, of course not. The local MP, James Lenny, spoke out against this discrimination before I even had heard about it. He sent a letter to the City Council asking them to apologize for this motion. I caught up with him while I was in downtown Nanaimo. You were one of the first to respond to the City Council before this hit the national media. How did the bigotry of the May 5th resolution in City Council come to your attention?
Well, I was coming back from Ottawa to attend the Leadership Prayer Breakfast on the 16th, opening my BlackBerry in Vancouver Airport, and I'm getting emails from concerned citizens alarmed about what had taken place at the Committee of the Whole meeting. It was the misinformation, it was the mischaracterization of the Christian community that was apparent based on, regardless of the empathy of the one councillor who brought forward the motion for the complainants. However, as you said, it was a long time that they sat on it and didn't act. I think they've been well advised to act quickly and apologize for not only for the action, but for the debate itself. And in fact, what council has put out is a clarification at this stage of what their intentions are for the future, but it's bereft of any apology. As I said to council in my letter, that I think they will find that the Christian community that has been offended by these remarks is one of the most tolerant and forgiving of communities, and a genuine apology would be very much appreciated. And of course, I couldn't go to Nanaimo without talking to the one councillor who stood up to this bigotry, Bill McKay. I asked him about how this motion has started a lot of candid conversations in the community.
I think the community is very engaged in this right now, and I sure wish it was a different topic, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah. I got some news for you. Just before we came to visit you here, we were at the mayor's office at City Hall. Now, he had refused to talk to us so far, several times, but we thought, let's just try. So we just went to his office, and to my surprise, he sat down with us, but that wasn't the really surprising part. He actually said, and this came as a surprise to me, that he regrets the vote, that he wants to rescind it, and that they're going to make some public apology. He said all this is imminent. It came as news to me. Is that news to you too?
It is. It's very encouraging. I sent an email to the mayor Monday morning, to which he's not yet replied, and I asked him to stop this madness. I asked him to get somebody to help us with our crisis management. I put a motion forward. We needed to rescind this motion. We needed off the books altogether, and we needed to apologize to the community, and we needed to apologize to our country for some of the things that were said. In addition to which, we need to also investigate all of the aspects of the events leading up to the decision to cancel that meeting. I've since discovered that before it even got to council, it had already been cancelled.
Well, that's even weirder That's even weirder. And who would have canceled it, on what authority? There's so many things that need to be brought out into the light here.
I couldn't agree more. That's why we're going to be demanding somebody get involved, somebody above reproach that we can trust, that can be, that council can designate to be someone that could investigate this thing, someone not connected with Nanaimo, either in the past or the future, that can look at it with a new, fresh set of eyes and dig down, peel back the layers of the onion, and find out what the heck happened here.
There's a lot of reasons why people don't ever want to admit they're wrong. I mean, we all suffer from that. I mean, pride, you don't want to admit you did something wrong, you went off half-cocked. I'm suffering from that myself, but boy, these guys, they've been digging in their heels really for 2 months in a way. It sounds like the mayor has decided to cut bait here. If the mayor, if he lives up to what he told me, you know, an hour ago, do you think that'll be the momentum shifter, and do you think the other councillors will come on side with them?
Well, as I said, I gave him a lot of those suggestions 2 days ago. I'm disappointed that I had to hear from you, as opposed to him, that these are some of the decisions and conclusions he's coming to.
It sounded almost like he was making it up on the spot just to appease me, because he saw us out front with 100+ folks there. I mean, listen, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, boy, but boy, I got to tell you, it looked like he spontaneously said, I'd better say something to let the air out of this balloon before it pops.
Well, it's about time we started heading in the right direction. We really need to show good, strong leadership in this very difficult time in our community, and we need to make our community feel safe, that every last one of them is welcome in our community. We need to have the community nurtured in as much as that they're going to have confidence in their leaders again.
I asked the mayor how much money has been spent paying off claims, because when you rip up a contract, you know, there's someone there, and put aside your rationale for ripping it up, religious or political, you rip up any contract with anyone, there's going to be a damage claim. And the mayor acknowledged that there were some negotiations and some payments. He said he wouldn't give me the details because they were subject to a confidentiality clause. I asked him where the money's coming from. He said, oh, just general funds. That is bad, bad behavior. Do you think we'll ever see the light of day on how much money and how it was spent by taxpayers on this fool's errand?
When you have two parties to a legal contract and a legal settlement to a contract dispute, both parties, they can either agree to go in hiding and hide the information, or they can both be open about it. I'd be willing to bet you that if we went to the Daily News and said, would you mind if we shared this information with the community because we're obliged to do so, I don't think they would have a problem with it.
I don't think, as Christians especially, I don't think they're looking for a pound of flesh. I don't think there's a vengeance there. There's just, people want an acknowledgement that what was done there was wrong.
There's no doubt about it. I honestly don't know what the problem is by saying you're sorry. As far as the settlement is concerned and the effect economically on the community, so many municipal governments make the mistake when they believe that they're at a council meeting that they're having a private conversation with their community, and investors worldwide watch those conversations. My concern is it's not so much the legal fees involved or the settlement with the Daily News, it's the potential damage that we've done to the community. People are telling us they're not going to come here to visit. They're not going to invest here. This might take us years to get over, but come November, we need to make sure that we have a strong, trusted leadership at City Hall.
Well, let me ask you about that, because when a city councillor makes himself available to the media, talks about elections, and we need strong leadership, it begs the question, are you going to run for mayor?
Well, at this particular point, the jury's out on that. You know, we've had lots of discussions at home about that issue. The fact is that at this point, over the next few months, I really need to keep my eyes on my knitting and make sure that I'm just the best councillor that I can be up until election time.
When I made my motion of May 5th, I never ever expected the result of this.
We show up at Councillor Patchy's door. Will he apologize for the anti-Christian ambush motion he put forward 2 months ago? That's next.
So we spoke with the citizens in Nanaimo, we spoke with the mayor, and we spoke with the lone councillor who voted no. But what about the man who introduced this anti-Christian ambush motion? Well, I thought I'd pay Fred Patchy a visit and see what he had to say about the mayor promising to apologize. Sure enough, the mayor had given him a heads up about his own planned apology, and Patchy agreed it was the right thing to do. So I asked him, why the sudden change of heart?
When I made my motion of May 5th, I never ever expected the result of this. The motion was really done with those two things in mind. That was the leader cast, the issue of divisiveness, homophobia, and other expressions of hate. I believe it was. That said, I did not intend to offend any Christians or any people of faith, any faith, men or women. And so this went way beyond what I expected it to be. And so I'm sorry for that. And I will be voting in favor of the rescinding when it comes our way.
Why the change now after holding firm for nearly 2 months?
It's been a long time. It's been a learning experience, to say the very least. Once we made our peace, for lack of a better word, with the Christian community here in Nanaimo, and the mayor made his statement in an open council meeting, what, a week ago Monday I think it was. I kind of hoped that that would have been the end of it, and that of course is not so. I'm cognizant of the fact that more than 95% of the correspondence that I get from Christians does come from different parts than this particular municipality. It comes from far and wide. That was an eye-opener. And you know, again, when the motion was made, and I have to say to you again, it was made in good faith. I never, ever, nor did any of my colleagues, wish to offend anyone of any religion. And so when you come to the conclusion that you know, something has to give at some point, now is the time to do that, and sooner rather than later. It, you know, I can tell you this has been the stuff that sleepless nights are made of, and that's part of my decision to when this comes before council to speak to it and to try and make things better. That's the simple answer. I also want you to know that I've had some real problems with some of the emails that I've had. I can mention a few if you like.
Whatever you want to tell me.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you. Hope you get AIDS and die and nobody will miss you. It's pretty tough. Some simple ones that just say Heil Hitler. I'm human like anybody else, and when the occasion came up, and I think it may have come from yourself, where you could not understand how someone like myself, who was born in Nazi-occupied the Netherlands, how I could do something like this. And Mr. Levant, no matter which way you look at it, that hurts. And that drives something in you that, well, it's too difficult to explain on short notice, but I can tell you that after you made that remark, I did get a fairly large number of emails from people with distinctly Dutch last names. And
what did they say? There's a lot of Dutch people around here.
Oh, I know, and most of them are from the prairies, I think. But they had a few things to say, like, you know, shame on you, why would you... Well, basically they equated me with the fact that since I made that motion, I'm the Nazi.
Do you today still feel that Nanaimo should not have division? I mean, how can you not have division on core moral questions?
I know what your question alludes to, I think. I can tell you that in the almost 6 years that I've been on council, I have learned that things municipal very often have more than the proverbial every coin has two sides. Quite often it has 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. And so it becomes complicated when you make decisions where you have to consider all those things. And yeah, divisiveness does happen. A divide is part of our democracy. That's how we try to work around it and come to the best conclusion. It's not an easy thing to do, I can assure you, and I'm sure you do know. But yeah, there is this instant of trying to do something, and I'll say to you again, Mr. Levant, with the best of intention for what is a minority in this particular municipality, the so-called gay and lesbian community. And it was with that in mind that I made the motion. I can understand where some of my colleagues are coming from, that they wish they'd had more notice, and surely, I think they're right.
Today outside City Hall, I met a woman who is planning a wedding in her family. Mm-hmm. And she says it will be a Christian wedding, and that she's wondering if she should have it at the convention center for two reasons. She thought, maybe I don't like the convention center anymore because of this motion, and maybe my Christian wedding will not meet the approval. If someone believes that marriage is between one man and one woman only, and they're not, being violent about it, they're just, that's their belief. Do you think that person is homophobic?
No, I don't. I really don't. I never have, and I never will. And that had really no connection with my motion. What it turned into in fairly short time was that the intent of my motion was interpreted as unless you believe in same-sex marriage, you don't have entry into a publicly owned building. Why would I think it homophobic if people would believe that if they express their opinion on that? It's the furthest thing from my mind. Really, you have to accept that, because that's the truth.
Thank you for your time today. I appreciate it.
More Source after the break. Boy, that Fred Patchy I spoke to on his front stoop was a very different man than the one who introduced the ambush resolution 2 months ago, wasn't it? The one I spoke to yesterday was abject, apologetic, and frankly, hurt. His feelings were hurt because he felt marginalized, not just by his own community, but a few phone calls or emails that said personally offensive things. Well, hang on. Isn't that what his resolution did? And not just from him, but other councillors like Jim Kipp, who compared Christians to terrorists and organized criminals. Yeah, now Fred Patchy knows what it feels like, except for the difference is, when he and the other 7 councillors voted for it, it had the power and the force of law, and it actually banned Christians from an event and had a permanent ban. I am grateful, though, that him and the city council seem to have come to their senses. But I know this, they didn't come to their senses through quiet contemplation and reflection. They didn't come to their senses when pastors came to them gently. They only came to their senses when more than 6,000 Sun viewers signed a forceful petition, emailed and phoned, when we started to put together a legal defense fund to sue them, when we took a poll, when we started planning radio ads. That is what motivated them to follow the law and do the right thing. By the way, the extra money in our legal defense fund, we will put to good use for religious equality. John Carpay is actually going to be leading a lawsuit for Trinity Western Union to have their law grads practice law in Nova Scotia. I'll tell you about that on another show. I'm Ezra Levant, fighting for freedom with you. And in Nanaimo, we won. Good night, everybody.